Welcome to PH Insight. Know the force behind the flag. Whether it's warships, fighter jets, or the next big defense move, if it matters to Philippine security, it's here. When the Philippine Navy, PN, acquired its first two AW-159 Wildcat anti-submarine helicopters in 2016, it was celebrated as a milestone in the country's maritime defense capability. For the first time, the PN could deploy a purpose-built aircraft for tracking and neutralizing submarines, a critical tool given the growing tensions and naval activity in the West Philippine Sea. At that time, the Department of National Defense, DND, spent 5.4 billion Cuban pesos, or about $115 million, for the pair, roughly $57.5 million each, in a deal with UK-based Leonardo helicopters. The 2016 package, however, was not fully equipped. The helicopters did not come with the Thales compact flash-dipping sonar, a crucial underwater detection system, nor the Leonardo HITAS 15 defensive aids suite, which provides missile warning, radar warning, and countermeasure dispensing. Some weapons were included, such as Rafael Spike NLOS missiles and LIG NEX 1 Blue Shark lightweight torpedoes, but in undisclosed quantities. Integrated Logistics Support, ILS, was also part of the contract, although likely limited in duration. The reasoning at the time was practical. The PN had never operated a platform like this before, so the focus was on acquiring the airframes and starting basic operations, with the understanding that full capabilities could be added later. Fast forward 9 years to 2025, and the DND is preparing to sign another contract for 6 more AW-159s. According to the latest DND procurement monitoring report, the terms of reference for the project were approved on June 24, 2025, under the new inventory-based items procurement category allowed by RA 12009, which emphasizes commonality with existing assets. The budget for this buy is a staggering 42.29 billion Cuban pesos, around $735 million at the current exchange rate of 57.50 Cuban pesos to $1, which works out to an average of $122.5 million per helicopter. This price is more than double the per unit cost in 2016 and, strikingly, more expensive than what some modern multi-role fighter jets cost on the export market, including the F-16 Block 7072 Viper or the Saab JAS-39 Gripen E. This has led to many observers asking the same question: why is this deal so expensive? There are several possible explanations. First, this time the AW-159S may be delivered fully mission-equipped from day one. That would mean having the Thales compact flash-dipping sonar installed, along with the HITAS 15 defensive aids suite, which would give the helicopters a much better chance of surviving in a contested environment. The weapons load might also be significantly larger, possibly including a bigger stockpile of Blue Shark torpedoes, more Spike NLOS missiles, and even depth charges or other specialized munitions. Fully outfitting an anti-submarine helicopter is far more expensive than acquiring a basic airframe with limited systems. Second, the integrated logistics support package might be much more comprehensive this time around. Instead of just a few years of support, the deal might cover 2 decades or more, including training simulators, spare parts for both the new helicopters and the original 2, specialized tools and ground support equipment, and even depot-level maintenance capabilities based in the Philippines. Long-term sustainment is a major cost driver in defense contracts, and if the PN wants to operate these aircraft well into the 2050s, that commitment would be reflected in the price. Another factor is economic. Since 2016, the Philippine peso has weakened from 47 Cuban pesos to about 57.50 Cuban pesos to the US dollar, a drop of around 22%. Add to that nearly 30% cumulative inflation in the US over the same period, and you get a combined cost increase of about 60% in peso terms even if the USD price per helicopter had stayed the same. But in reality, the USD price has more than doubled, meaning that inflation and exchange rates are only part of the story. One other possible reason for the high cost is that the AW-159 may be nearing the end of its production run. The design is a modernized version of the Westland Lynx, a helicopter lineage dating back decades. Leonardo has not secured many new orders for the AW159 in recent years. The Algerian Navy was the last new customer, ordering 3 units in 2022. If the Philippine Navy signs this deal, it could very well be the last AW159 customer. Low volume, end-of-line production tends to be more expensive, as fixed costs are spread over fewer units. Leonardo might also be using this contract to justify keeping its assembly line open for a few more years. There is also the possibility that the deal includes some level of technology transfer or the establishment of local maintenance, repair, and overhaul capacity in the Philippines, which would add upfront costs but benefit the PN's sustainment capability in the long term. But this leads to a larger strategic question: if the Philippine Navy is willing to spend $122.5 million per helicopter, why not go for the Sikorsky MH-60R Seahawk Romeo instead? The MH-60R is widely regarded as the gold standard in naval ASW helicopters, with greater size, range, endurance, and payload capacity compared to the AW159. It is the standard ASW helicopter for the U.S. Navy and is also used by Australia, Japan, India, and South Korea, with New Zealand set to join the list as it replaces its SH-2G Super Sea Sprites. Operating the MH-60R would offer the PN full interoperability with key allies, access to a large global support network, and the assurance of long-term parts availability. While on paper the MH-60R is more expensive, it might actually deliver better value over its lifetime, given its broader capabilities and widespread use. The main reason the PN might stick with the AW159 comes down to fleet commonality. The PN already operates 2 Wildcats, and adding 6 more would create a uniform fleet of 8, simplifying training, maintenance, and logistics. The AW159 is also smaller and lighter than the MH-60R, fitting comfortably into the hangars and deck spaces of the PN's José Rizal-class frigates and new corvettes without requiring modifications. By contrast, the larger MH-60R could require adjustments to ship infrastructure, adding cost and complexity. Furthermore, a UK government-to-government deal could be processed faster than a US foreign military sales case, which often involves longer timelines. The PN has already invested in infrastructure and training for the AW159, and continuing with the type could deliver quicker operational readiness. However, there is an inherent risk in expanding a fleet based on a platform with a shrinking user base. The AW159 is currently operated only by the Philippines, the United Kingdom, South Korea, and soon Algeria, with South Korea already shifting future orders to the MH-60R. If production ends after the Philippine order, the PN could find itself one of the last operators in the world, making spare parts and upgrades harder, and more expensive, to obtain in the future. This is the classic orphan fleet problem in military procurement, and it has happened before with other systems. Without an official breakdown of what the 42.29 billion Cuban pesos covers, much of the discussion remains speculative. Analysts suspect it may include not just the 6 new helicopters but also upgrades for the original 2, a full suite of ASW and self-defense systems, a large stockpile of weapons, and a long-term sustainment package.